Let's do it. All right, everybody. Paragon's here, Flux here with Gabby Dizon from Yield Guild Games, one of the co-founders. And if you're in Web3 gaming, I don't need to introduce this man because he is one of the leading, if not the leading thought leader. Talk about key opinion leaders or whatever. Gabby is above and beyond. He is the ultimate key building leader, not even opinions. So, Gabby, I told you I have a fun question to start with. You've
Want to hear
recommended
it?
you've recommended this book to me three separate times, and I have read it. I'm a huge fan. The Fall by Neil Stephenson. I wanted to ask you, what is it? Can you maybe briefly explain the premise, and then what is it about this book that makes you recommend it? Because I agree, it's an incredible book, very thought provoking.
Yeah, so the thing about that book is that I don't actually haven't heard a lot of people read that book, of course, versus like Snow Crash or Cryptonomicon, but I think it's actually one of Stephenson's like really, really, really good books. The protagonist is an MMO designer, and I haven't read it in a while, so I might be forgetting some details. But when they die, they basically get into their souls get into this kind of MMO life where they resume life as like the character that they wish, and then they start to develop their powers there, and then people kind of interact with these dead characters by basically playing the MMO, right? Is that correct? And
Yeah,
it's just a freaking cool premise, right?
yeah, it's crazy because Neil has this real world with the characters. I guess they're from another book called Reamd. I haven't read that one yet, although
Yeah,
I've heard
indeed.
it's really good. I've read like six, and there's still so many more. He's a prolific author, but yeah, it's like basically I interpreted it as like the creation of the singularity, kind of, because you see. The main guy gets uploaded. He's the first one they upload because they just got the technology. He's a rich CEO. He has access. His family has
That's
access,
right.
and he like becomes almost like a god in this digital world because
The,
he is it's like a biblical the second half of the book starts with like a
starts from
biblical
a
thing.
blank. He starts from white noise, blank screen, right?
Yeah. And so what I'm curious about, because people watching are like, what the heck, Flux, where you go? But what is it? I'm just curious because you recommended it to me. Of course, you're talking to tons of people, so you mentioned it a few different times, and I
Yeah.
was interested that it clearly wasn't a random recommendation because it came up multiple. So why does that book? Before we get into specific stuff on Law Land and YGG, I'm just curious on a big picture. Why does that book resonate you? What is it about that? I mean, it's kind of obvious because of the space that we're in. But yeah, like
Yeah.
because a lot of
Well,
fans of Neil Stephenson don't even like that book as much. So it's interesting that's like one of your
that's
favorites.
funny. Well, of course, we are creating digital worlds, and I mean, for a lot of us that spend a lot of time in crypto, the kind of social networks, the economic networks, the peer groups, a lot of it probably seems more real than like who's your next door neighbor or who are the people in your city, right? So even though we are not all kind of like living in some giant MMO with dead and alive people hanging out together, I think a lot of the premises in Fall are actually already true. Where if you think about it, you distill that the things that are happening in these virtual worlds are already more real for a lot of people than what's happening in their physical worlds, right? And of course, that's kind of a recurring trope in science fiction, but I really love the way that this was kind of presented here.
Yeah, it's that transition from real world into digital. We're experiencing that in reality, and Neil Stephenson is always so good at kind of seeing a few decades ahead and writing those ideas. Okay,
Absolutely.
I could easily spend this whole hour nerding out about books and stuff, but I'll make myself move on. So let's talk about Law Land. For anyone who doesn't know, this is YGG's big game. You've published it yourself, built it in house, and
Our
it's been
first
a
game.
first game. And y'all have done a lot of stuff. It's actually it's. I was thinking, I was like, is this their first game? Because there's so many things y'all have done. So I'm curious. Uh, what made Yield Guild Games decide to make its own game? When you looked at the industry, what made you think, okay, we should make a game? And then along with that, what were the first stages like? The ideation, the very beginning, that creative genesis of the project? I'm really curious to hear about that.
Yeah, yeah, super good question. So, YGG's been around for almost 5 years now. We got started in 2020. And my background is actually a casual game developer before I got into crypto. So I was making casual games for PC and mobile phones. And YGG wasn't a game developer, right? I started playing the Axie community. and I started organizing guild communities around Axie when it was growing in late 2020 and then 2021, and then kind of rode the growth from there. And so we think about ourselves as like community-based platforms, right? And from there, from Axie, we kind of got into Parallel, a lot of other games, and then we built a questing platform. That so we really thought of ourselves as being in the platform business. And then we started taking a look at different assets, investing in game tokens and NFTs. And so we've seen a lot of games. We played around lots of games, and wow, basically seen the entire gamut, right? And one thing that we noticed was that like I think there's kind of a fundamental disconnect of like the types of games that we're making and who is actually here in crypto. I think people are trying to look for that mythical, oh, how many quote unquote real Web3 gamers are there, right? But if you look at who's around, everybody is in crypto in one way or another because they want to make money, right? And let's just be very clear about that. You want to do it through DeFi, you want to do it through playing games, you want to do it, uh, trading NFTs. Most of the people that are here are degens in some way, shape, or form, and it just differs on how they want to express it. So we thought that like why try to make money for that mythical Web3 gamer, of which there aren't that many, and try to make a game for casual degen. So that was kind of the genesis of the idea. We built our own studio from scratch, out of Vietnam, actually. So hired an entire team, started making the game. Our game director is a very experienced, casual and social game designer. And yeah, we started creating Lowland last year, and yeah, now we just released it.
What made you decide Vietnam? If I'm not mistaken, that's where Sky Mavis is based as well, correct?
That's correct. Well,
Yeah.
Vietnam just has a lot of development talent. It's no accident that Sky Mavis, the team from Cypher, Mirai, there's a lot of developers there. And while I come from a game development background in the Philippines, we just think that there's like a lot of deeper, I would say, like just deeper technical talent in Vietnam, and there's just more talent that we can hire from there, from a game development perspective.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, there's a lot there. The guild platform, the early Axie days, the casual degen, people in Web3 want to make money. Here's a question that comes up, maybe a little bit.
Mhm.
It's something I think about a lot lately. When you look at classic World of Warcraft and these historical examples where people were selling gold or kind of like precursors to play to earn, I often wonder about the ratio of the amount of people who were playing attempting to earn compared to people who are playing spending money for fun with no expectation. And I
Right.
wonder, it feels like one thing that Web3 games struggle with is that, yes, the casual degens and play to earn audience is very important and very legitimate. And it's a huge, I mean, Axie Classic became the beginning of this whole thing
Right.
off of that. I was there. I was grinding double aqua plant, and I was a scholar, not a manager.
You were
I know
too. That's
people
amazing. I
people
didn't
see
know that.
me. You think I come from investing, whatever. No, I was a scholar in my mom's basement. I got this apartment off of a community manager job I got from content that I made from Axie Classic. So
I love it.
yeah, like I really
That was the dream. That was the dream, right? That was a dream in 2021. Yeah.
absolutely. And I remember those early streams too. It was the whole YGG Filipino crew. Like I remember noticing like America's in trouble because these Filipino, communities are so energetic and hardworking. And I look around me and people don't even want to get off the couch. I'm like, sheesh, we're in trouble, bro. Um, so what I want to ask is, what do you think about that? Like, do we need casual players that are spending for fun to make the play to earn sustainable, or how does that relationship, because that's something I see is like you mentioned the lack of casual players, like how do we avoid that becoming unsustainable or like kind of crumbling over because everyone is, if they're potentially too focused, what I'm trying to say. How do you think about all that?
Yeah. Okay, so this is actually a common pattern that is not just in crypto gaming, it's also in crypto in general. And you can even see this in things like free to play games, wherein there's a lot of people who are doing the work, and maybe spending a little bit of money, and there are a few people who are basically spending a lot of money that's kind of subsidizing everything else. It kind of feels weird and a little bit unfair when you see it. But if you look at how nature works, this kind of power law actually exists everywhere, where even in the richest people pay for most of the taxes, and yeah, and they spend a lot that kind of keeps the people busy with jobs. And even when you look at something like employment, somebody pays for a lot of people a fixed salary so that they can come to work. And that person, the owner, CEO, entrepreneur, whatever you call them, they're the ones that are taking risk, investing their money because they want to do something productive and make more money in the future, right? So that kind of power law between a few people spending a lot of money and a lot of people basically earning from that is kind of part of law of nature, I think, and you just see it everywhere once you start looking.
So one more question on this, and we'll move on. I'm not going to grill you. I'm super curious because you have the most perspective on this. Do you feel like a game can be sustainable if the majority of players are mainly there to play to earn, or do you feel like eventually you need to have a cohort of casual players that kind of prop it up, but we just need time to get there? Like, is it that the casual players aren't even needed, or we're just looking for them at a later stage? Like, how do you see that?
You really need to design for spenders. I think it's kind of hard for people, especially for people who are used to more Western games that are kind of monetized off skins, where they're used to it being extremely skill oriented. In Asia, it's very different, where a lot of it is free to play, gacha oriented, and it's really meant for whales to spend a lot of money. The thing with the Western model is that you need an extremely high player base to be able to maintain a business model that relies purely on things like skin trading. Whereas with a gacha model, or like with a model that can cater to whales, you can actually have a much smaller player base and still make money.
Yeah, it makes sense. And there's definitely a cultural difference. Like when I talk to people, sometimes it's like we're both talking about gaming. One person's thinking of Dark Souls and stuff like that, and someone else is thinking of like, match 3 on their phone. It's really two different types of
That's right.
products. Yeah. And it comes down what you're
And they're both
really
games.
yeah, and what you're really saying is product market fit, the simplest business lesson. Like what do people want?
Absolutely.
With games especially, we're not making food or medicine, it's entertainment. So like if they don't want it, it's like stop making it, make what they do want. So getting back on LOL Land, then you all have had a really successful launch. Speaking of product market fit, I think the numbers I saw was somewhere around 25 to 40,000 in the first weekend. I don't have the exact number in front of me. How do you feel about that launch? And I would also ask, what is the biggest surprises or lessons you've learned? We talked about the very beginning. Now let's talk about the launch. Like, what were the lessons you've learned post launch?
Yeah, I'd say that we have launched it, and I do think that it's achieved product market fit. Surprises. We launched it, and I don't think the game is nowhere near content complete, because we wanted to launch it and see how the market would react, to give us data and to give us signals on which way we would build further. One of the most surprising things is that retention is actually very high for a game that is essentially a like one click board game. Yeah, we're getting like best in class retention, which means that people actually like the game. And yeah, and from our people in our community, people that are playing abstract games, like our like pudgy community friends, like they love it, and that makes me super happy.
It makes sense because it's such a good second monitor game. Since you're clicking
Yep,
a button, you can do auto spin, so you can kind of like let it play out for you. It's almost like the AI powered games and all these different models exploring that second screen gaming. And yeah, I mean,
that's right.
if they're jamming abstract, this fits into that so well. And that actually leads to a question. The answer might be obvious, but I'll ask it anyway. Why go with abstract? Of course, they are the hype chain to launch on right now. That's a given. But aside from that, like, what was that process like of picking abstract? There are a lot of great chains, base,
Yeah.
etc.
There are a
Ronin.
lot of great chains, and we started a project like mid last year before we actually learned about abstract.
Hmm.
And it was the YGG Play Summit that I got to meet the Southeast Asia leads of Abstract and Pudgy. Cheryl and Aaron, wonderful people in Malaysia, they attended our event in Manila, and we showed them our game. And basically, they said, "Why don't you license Pudgy Penguins into it?" And I just so love the idea of having Pudgy Penguins in my game. And because, of course, Abstract and Pudgy are kind of tied together at the hip, that's how we got to Abstract.
I would love to see a parallel board. Now that you say that, I'm imagining like Harf
Oh,
and Kathy and everyone.
Koji, come on, Koji, if you are listening to this, let's make this happen.
I'll try to plant a seed in their heads, at least a thought, because that would be super cool. Two of the best projects collaborating. Okay, I'm trying not to jump around too much. What were there any other? I don't know if you can even answer this, but like, were there any other considerations other than Abstract? Any other chains you seriously considered?
We were definitely looking at the usual suspects. Like, I don't want to name them now, but we were definitely looking
Yeah.
at the usual suspects. But at the end of the day, it was the IP that kind of drove the decision.
Yeah, Pudgy, I mean, we're seeing that. And this is actually one of the things that makes me so excited about Parallel beyond just the card game, which I really do love, is we're at
Mhm.
that stage of Web3 gaming, it feels like, the IP stage. Axie, as always, was there first, establishing the Axie IP, making it like, I mean, that was the OG Genesis. But since then, Pudgies have probably been the biggest. Parallel's done a good job. Even games like, if you look at Off the Grid, it's just they have the whole opening cinematic about like this game where you're gonna go fight for real, but it's the future, so you can get killed and we'll just bring you back to life after. Like, we're seeing these stories, and I think that is it's really good because it goes with the play to earn, where it's like, okay, you're trying to make money, but you're also enjoying the story and feeling like you're in this world. When you have both those together, that's like peanut butter and jelly. Like, it's a crazy combination, like rice and beans or something, ketchup and mustard. Okay, I'm losing track. Let me get back on track here. There's just so many things I could ask you. Uh, okay, let's do this. Let's talk about the guild program. I think this ties together a lot of
Uh-huh.
these other things. So, as far as I understand, Paragons is not currently in the guild advancement program. How do I shill it to them to get us in there? And maybe you break down a little bit for people who don't know, what is the guild advancement program? Because it feels like guilds are the kind of building blocks of this space. All the games, all the content creators, everyone needs the guilds to back them. Even I've experienced that since working with Paragons. My life is 10 times easier. So, what is the guild advancement program? How did it get started? And yeah, how do I shill the team to get us involved in it?
Yeah, you guys should definitely get involved. So, we started the Guild Advancement Program, I would say 3 years ago, after the kind of play to earn hype had died, and we knew that the scholarship era in Axie was ending. We were thinking about what is the product that we build on top of the really awesome community that we have. And the idea we had then was that we want to build a kind of questing platform where not just gamers, but groups of gaming communities, guilds could discover these different games and play together. So that was how the Guild Advancement Program was born. We're now in season 10. So yeah, it's been running for 10 seasons in 3 years, and we've rotated just different games throughout the different seasons. We've had parallel in quite a number of them. A lot of just the favorite games that you probably played or heard of have starred there, and we've created either like individual quests and group quests so that players and guilds can basically discover all of these different games.
And so I can look into this off the interview. I don't want to make you onboard us personally. You're way too high level for that. But just one more question on this is how would a guild start? Or where would guilds look to find out how they can onboard into that? Is it as simple as just like making an account? And I don't really know. Yeah, how do guilds get started in that process if they aren't
Okay,
in there?
so we released on-chain guilds as part of their platform last year at guild.io. And with on-chain guilds, you basically have a guild interface where you put in the name of your guild, your logo, your members, and then it creates a multi-sig guild wallet at the back, which becomes kind of your guild treasury, right? And
Ooh,
then we create quests for those guilds. So, and the guild rewards go to that treasury. So it's actually pretty cool.
that sounds really good. Yeah, well, because this is what Paragons is kind of in the process of. We were completely focused on parallel. And it's interesting because I see in parallel, having been there as a scholar for Axie Classic, no pun intended, the parallels are so clear of like where parallel is now. Just feels like Axie when the scholarship model was kind of fading. It's that same thing where it's like the product is great, the team is great, pivoting is painful. Some people are going to go doomsayer mode, like, look, it's
Yeah.
dead. The team screwed us. All this usual angst, which is understandable. People are sometimes losing money. I get it. All this to say that we have been on that path of like, okay, diversify to many games, and that is
Yep.
exactly the kind of thing that's needed. It's just like ways to give our players opportunities. So like there's a business to business.
Absolutely.
It's a business to business thing of like Paragons plus YGG. Of course, y'all are a platform we're signing up for, not a direct thing. But like there's that B2B level, and then there's the B2C where our guild is offering opportunities to our players, and y'all are basically
That's right.
facilitating that. So we're kind of like the ambassador or whatever, kind of working with your platform, bringing people in. That whole model makes a ton of sense. And it kind of brings us to the connecting thread of all these things. Because trying to interview you for the first time, I'm clearly jumping around. I have my list of questions. I just put it on the ground because I need to like try to find the flow. And what I'm realizing is it really is the core thing I'm curious about with you as a person and the organization. Y'all are doing so much stuff. Calling it
We are.
platforms, the platform description makes total sense because that's the
Uh-huh.
each individual thing is really 100 things. I think a lot of people wonder this. How the hell do you keep it all together? How has it been like? And
With
what?
great difficulty.
And I guess like what was the process like from that 5 years ago where you're not sure how big it's going to be yet? You're just getting started, and now it's this huge thing. You've handled this so well. So like, yeah, how do you not get overwhelmed? And maybe like, are there any key moments over the last 5 years where you had to really change your approach, where scaling, like you had to really tackle some of those scaling challenges? Because we're kind of in that process, and so I'm super curious to hear how you tackled
Yeah,
that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. We've definitely gone through ups and downs, scaling processes, and I think that where we are now with Lowland and YGG Play, which is our game publishing unit, is like V3 or V4 of what YGG is. And so V1 was scholarships, right? And then V2 was basically like guilds and questing. With guilds and questing, we were organizing communities. We had a questing platform on top of that. We had like a guild management platform. And with the difference with publishing is that we are directly monetizing via our own game, Lowland, and via YGG Play, we'll start publishing other people's games. We've proven with Lowland that we actually know how to make money from games. And I can say this that not a lot of people know how to make money in games in Web3 right now.
Yeah.
We've proven that like we can do it. There's of course still lots to be improved, still lots to scale, but yeah, we've proven that this kind of thesis of casual degen games work. And so now we want to expand this. So now the pieces that we had before in marketing, distribution, community building, are all now going towards our new game publishing business.
And how does that work for you? Like when you're looking at a typical day and there's so many things, are you spending a lot of time in meetings, or like how do you interact with this huge organization that you're kind of at the front of? And how do you like, what inputs and outputs are you working with? It's in the weeds a little bit, but I think a lot of people who are watching this kind of conversation in 2025, this is going to be directly relevant to them.
Yeah, definitely. We've kind of built out an organization so far that have a lot of different leaders taking care of many different things. So we have a team that takes care of assets and finance, the NFTs, the tokens that we have, managing our cash flow. We have a really strong community team that takes care of our players, someone that interfaces with guilds, someone that creates the content, community programs, deals with KOLs. We have our product team that figures out what kind of product to make, hires the developers. And part of that product team is the game team that kind of sits in there making Lowland. And yeah, this now we kind of a well built out organization.
How do you decide when to build a new team, and how do you avoid having things run forever if it turns out that they're not effective or they're losing money or stuff like that? Like what's that decision process for starting or ending teams?
Oh, it's actually pretty tough. Of course, like the kind of easy answer to say is that you just look at the numbers and then you see if it's working out or not. But you actually have to observe the business for a while to see if there is kind of room for growth or not. And even if you've invested a lot in a particular business, if it's not making the money or it's not sustainable, then you'd have to make the kind of painful decision to end it and move on, right? So it's something that we faced multiple times in the past. And fortunately, this has led us to this position where we were able to make a small investment in a casual game, and now it's worked out. And now we're pretty much doubling down on it.
Yeah, so what other kind of stuff do you see in the next 6 to 12 months? Like do we expect to see more games from your publishing arm in the near future, or is this something years down the line? Like what's that looking like?
Oh, good question. So at YGG Play, we are publishing our own game, Lowland. However, we are looking for other types of casual degen games from other developers. So we plan to talk to a lot of different developers soon and see games that kind of fit the target audience of casual degens. Again, we're not looking to like publish an MMO or a shooter. We want casual games that have some form of speculative gameplay that people can enjoy easily. And yeah, that's the type of content that we're looking for.
Do you think these MMOs and Web3 shooters are kind of like a bad idea, or is it just not your lane? Like, what's your thought? Like, is there room for AAA? I don't want to name specific projects because then it gets super awkward, but we know some obvious examples of games that have done. I mean, Parallel's doing this, and the it remains to be seen if they're going to be able to be sustainable. We're all very optimistic, of course. Other projects have spent a lot of money. There's one that we both know what I'm thinking of, and I'm not going to say it. That's having a really hard time. That spent a very large amount of money. Do you think the AAA games are just not a right fit for this space, or is it too early, or how do you see that?
I would say that you have double execution risk. You have to be really good at the Web 2 side and you have to be really good at the Web 3 side. Each of that is risk enough. Being a pure Web 2 game is actually really hard right now. And being a pure Web 3 game kind of has a lot of, yeah, like there's things to watch out for. I actually super believe in Kalos and the Parallel team. And kudos to them for not just scaling the TCG, but you know, they have the TCG, they have the shooter, and then they have Colony, and now they have yeah, they have Wayfinder, which is kind of
Yeah.
just an insane number of high quality products. Like I don't know how Kalos does it, honestly.
Wayfinder is pretty wild because it's like you have this video game company and everyone says how cool they are, but they bring out this world class, probably best available right now AI crypto product. And it's just like, what? Like it's like if Nintendo made Chat GPT. That's what it feels like. It's like how is that possible? But it's because they're a future studio. They're really using games as their playground to experiment with new technology.
That's right.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, do you use like do you feel like you can use companies like Parallel, Sky Mavis? Are these the companies you compare yourself to, or do you feel like YGG is just in a league of its own? Like I almost like who can you even look to for inspiration, or if you're not sure, like where do you go? Yeah, like where do you go for advice and ideas? Given that y'all are not even on the cutting edge, but the bleeding edge, so to say, you're the very innovative. You're at the front. So like,
Well, I mean, we do talk a lot of people. We've gotten a lot of ideas from all these guys you mentioned, the Sky Mavis guys, the Parallel guys, a lot of the Web 2 game development people that I've known in my 20 plus years in games. So I think you actually have to take all of these ideas from everywhere. There's some Web 2 ideas that work really well in Web 3 and vice versa. And it's kind of like mixing all of those things together that has turned YGG into what it is. If you look at game publishing, it's not common in Web3 because most people raise money via VCs and then try to publish a game themselves. But now that's proven to not be easy. It hasn't been proven easy to ship a game. It hasn't been proven easy to launch or a game and raise funding and launch a token. So now being a publisher actually matters more than ever. And we're talking to a lot of really good games that say, we want to focus on the creativity of creating a game. Can you handle the marketing, monetization, smart contract audits, even all of those things for us. And yeah, those are things that we're in a position to do because we've been building out the distribution side of the business for the last few years without having our own content. And now we're doing it for our own content, which feels a lot better.
So the common thread here is finding product market fit, being monetizable, actually driving revenue, and
Absolutely.
not just hype while you're losing money and then you lose even more, which feels like what some Web3 projects have done. Uh, how should other games do this? Other projects, like projects, if someone's watching this and maybe they're running or working on the higher side, higher up on a team, their game isn't driving a lot of revenue, they aren't finding that fit. What kind of advice would you give someone like that who thinks that their team is good and they have something, but like right now it's not connecting with the market?
Yeah, ask yourself who your audience is. I think that's the most important thing. And if you're not clicking or you're not finding that audience, you have to think about what is actually the size of the audience that I'm building for. If it's a large enough size and they have money, then maybe you're not connecting well enough with them, right? And so, yeah, like have you talked to their communities? One of the things we're good at is that we're really good at building our community and also working with other communities. And honestly, that's really helped us with the distribution of our game.
How do you keep the community so united and the culture of YGG is so consistent? How do you manage that as the organization grows so much with so many people involved? Like, has there been times where you were worried about the culture of YGG, or like, what is that? Just because it's from the origins of the project and the Axie Scholar origins, like established it. Like, how do you see culture? Is it automatic, or is it something you have to manage over time?
It's definitely not automatic. It's definitely built over time. And of course, I don't own the culture, or even the company doesn't own the culture because the culture is the kind of common culture of the community. Of course, we set the tone, but we don't own it. The entire community owns it overall. So it's actually really hard to cultivate that. One thing I'm really proud of is that like it's very rare that you actually see YGG community talking about price. Yeah, sometimes it annoys me because when the price of our token goes up, like the community doesn't talk about it. But
Right.
when the price goes down, they barely talk about it either. So I guess it balances out. But what people talk about is that their common love for games. And you can see this when you go to our event at the YG Play Summit. The best compliment I get from, Koji loves that event. AI Rev was there. Wolves DAO guys was there. Is that it doesn't feel like a crypto event. It really feels like a games event. You feel like you're at E3 or at Gamescom, but it's
Wow.
all Web3 games, and a lot of people are there that love playing the games. That's really the highest compliment that I've received for our event.
Yeah, that's huge because there's a nihilism in Web3 gaming sometimes, like a pessimism of like we're only here for the money in a suggestion of like no one's having fun, it's just money in some kind of negative way, as opposed to what you're really describing and showing is it just doesn't have to be exclusive. Like making money and wanting to make money does not mean the games have to suck, or it doesn't mean it has to be.
Absolutely.
It's just a part of the culture of today, and it's one of those things to adapt to. Y'all are planning your next big event, right? I saw the tweets. Although the
That's right.
you
We
want to
announced that we're gonna do the YGG Play Summit again this year, roughly the same time, November 19th to 22nd in Manila, the same area where we did it last year. So yeah, I'm hoping to see all of our friends again this year.
any surprises or fun stuff planned you can talk about now, or it's probably a little too early to get into specifics?
Well, there's one thing we have announced is that we are going to have a Vibes TCG tournament. And the
Yeah.
interesting thing about that is that it's going to be a physical TCG tournament. So it's going to give off like Magic the Gathering vibes. And that makes it feel very different from like the parallel tournament, which is really esports, right? And so I'm actually really excited to have both.
Yeah, Vibes is cool. I played it for a while. It's a very different kind of card game. It feels like got some Gwent, some Marvel Snap. It's that I really
Yeah.
appreciated that one because yes, it's the Pudgy Penguins IP, but like it's just a well-designed game. You can tell it was not made in a day. They thought about it. They had some
Yep.
intelligent, experienced designers on it. So that's
And the mechanics are unique in the sense that they didn't just slap on Pudgy Penguins into existing mechanics, right?
yeah, it's not like Pudgy 1-1 for one, and then next turn I have my 2-3 for two, and then I play a fireball for
Yeah,
five
yeah,
damage. Yeah, it's much more.
yeah.
And that physical aspect, the collectability, yeah, like being able to see it is because you mentioned parallel feels more like esports. This is one of the challenges we have with digital collectibles is like the
Uh-huh.
flex, where when you're in a real space, it just feels like you're putting up your phone. Look at my Bored Ape or something. It feels so
Yeah.
cringe, right? So the physical one is
That's
cool.
true.
Do you think that digital collectibles, NFTs in particular, will eventually be more flexible? Is it a generational shift, or is it possible that there's always going to be a bit of awkwardness where like I can flex my designer shoes, I can flex my whatever, but my digital stuff only really works in the digital realm? Like, is that just how it's going to be, or do you think that can be improved upon?
Oh no, I have no doubt that like flexing your digital identity, digital assets will be kind of greater than the physical assets. We're already spending really more time in our digital worlds, and like that's where a lot of my social communities are, and where they are, that's where the status signaling is, and a lot of these NFTs, similar to luxury goods, like it's a status symbol, right? Why would people buy a CryptoPunk, right? Yeah, this is ultimately status signaling, and the human behavior is actually the same. The human psyche is the same, whether it's physical or digital.
We're probably going to get to a point where like your glasses scan everyone you see and it shows you their coolest thing anyway. Like
Yeah,
honestly,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
remember before Facebook, the MySpace pages and how those looked?
yeah.
It's going to be like that. You're going to scan someone, it's going to be like top 8 songs, favorite NFT. Like it's going to be just like holograph. You're going to go to the tournament and people are going to be
That
playing.
throws me back to us. Yeah, yeah. Particular time. That's so cool.
That's what I've been missing, man. I mean, talking about the songs too, not to get off topic. Just this is random, but do you ever think music NFTs can work? While we're talking on collectibles, art has worked really well. Game items have worked really well. I come from a music background, actually playing the drums. Music NFTs just haven't really. You have to really like
They've
squint
been
at it.
super tough. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
is that just
I mean,
because you can't see it and scroll through it, or what do you think?
yeah, probably that. I think the best use case for music NFTs are actually the fractionalization of masters. And I do think that, I hope that that becomes easy to do. I know some people have attempted it. I don't think any have been particularly successful, but holding IP, not just masters, any kind of like original IP in a smart contract, fractionalized, can be owned by either anyone or just a group of people that can buy it on chain. It just makes a lot of sense, right?
If the Mario Bros theme was fractionalized and there was some revenue flowing, that would be. And
People would buy it.
there's the flex too. Like I loved the Sonic the Hedgehog songs in the classic games,
Yep.
and like if I could own Green Hill Zone or Emerald Hill, whatever, like I would put that on my wall on a digital display. I don't care if everyone thinks I'm cringe. I'm going to be smiling at it because I would love it. So that's a good one. I'm waiting for battle tracks. I have a dream. We're going to get off this topic in 2 seconds, but I have a dream of doing like a copyright free collection and trying to get a bunch of games to integrate it. Cause I imagine a world where musicians can just like publish tracks and people can like import playlists into games and like, I envision this thing that'll probably never happen. But anyway,
Mhm.
let's get back on track. So with the vibes and the physical event, do you how do you feel about the Vibes model? So they have physical cards. Actually, I guess
Yep.
the digitals aren't NFTs yet in Vibes. So it's like
Not yet.
it's
No.
a virtual game digitally with
Yeah.
some play to earn aspect, maybe with the leaderboard, and then this physical game.
Correct.
Do you think trying to think of what direction to take this. Do you think that having physical objects how do I word this? How do I word this? Just like what other ways can games create physical merch to correspond? Maybe that's a way to take this. Like Parallel has
Yep.
statues and a lot of fun stuff. Vibes has the cards. Parallel has physicals that aren't playable; they're just collectible. When we look at games like La La Land or Vibes or I don't know, what other things can we do with physical, or have you seen anything else interesting, like other games doing interesting things with that?
Yeah, I think the what Pudgies did actually was that, you could scan a code and then you could redeem something online. I think that's actually super cool. If you look at Lowland, we actually have NFTs and the characters kind of look like some of those like vinyl collectibles. And I'd love to have physical versions of those that might be either tied directly to an NFT or allows you to mint the same kind of NFT. So that's actually a model I really want to play with.
I thought of it. Okay. Do you think, why hasn't this happened yet? I used to, when I was on my in the trenches grind, I used to always imagine, why doesn't a coupon drop that gives me a free hamburger from McDonald's or the equivalent? Like, how come if I'm grinding, why am I not getting a free Domino's pizza as a drop? Like, do you
Yeah,
think,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Very good question. I mean, that's just yeah, couponing, advertising. I think no one has just had a startup that has successfully implemented yet, but that is, I would say, like an eventuality. Yeah.
I want to do that. I want to do Paragon's Guild Advancement Program. One of the rewards is a pizza. Like, I just feel like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so, because like
I
it's
mean, you
just
could be grinding inside Lowland, right? And then one of the rewards is like, yeah, redeem this pizza. Like, I could see that happening.
because it would just have to pay you have like some kind of thing where the restaurant gets paid from the
Yeah,
game, and it like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, those are the kind of
Yeah,
things.
ultimately, that's just API calls. Yeah, yeah, it'll work. It'll work.
Like, it feels like
Somebody's got to do it.
these are the kind of things where like it's like people talk about what's the word, when the digital thing is mimicking the physical thing too much. I forget the word.
Digital.
So it's like, if the iPad, or if
Oh, yeah,
the,
yeah, yeah.
trying to think of, like the iPhone doesn't look like an old phone, or like the iPod didn't look like a record player. Like, a car is not a horseless carriage. I'm struggling on the
And
examples.
I know what you're saying, but I'm blanking on it right now too.
It feels like with Web3 gaming, this is something which has happened so far, which is, I think it's skew morphism. Isn't that what it's called?
Humorphism. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's right.
So it's like an ebook doesn't need to have pages literally flipping, or all these things of like how like when we get too attached to the physical version instead of thinking from first principles. It does feel like a lot of Web3 games might be it's like skeuomorphic, but instead of physical to digital, it's like the Web 2 to Web 3 version. This is actually a really good
Sure,
thought, I think, where there is a sort of Web 2,
sure.
Web 3 skeuomorphism across all areas of the industry, where, like, for example, at Paragons, we were making content for Parallel based on what's popular in Hearthstone. And it was kind of skeuomorphic. It was like, okay, there's challenges where people will play Hearthstone, but only one mana cards, or Hearthstone, but only
Sure.
female cards, like absurd challenges. And we did a series of these. They weren't getting a lot of viewership. And then we realized our in depth strategy guides were doing like 10 times better. And it's just like, okay,
Yeah,
the play to earn audience plus the sweat audience, even like for tournaments, and even
yeah,
casual players in Web3 are just naturally sweaty. So, like, the content that worked in Web 2 didn't work for Web 3. I feel like on a game design level, we see a lot
uh-huh.
of that. And what you're talking about with
Yeah,
LawLand is really addressing that challenge. I guess
absolutely.
I'm curious what other things, like the casual degen kind of category, is an answer for this. Can you think of other things, even just theories or kind of far future things, of ways that Web3 gaming can be less derivative of Web 2 and more of its own kind of first principles thing that makes sense? Like, what are some other things we're missing as an industry right now because we're too reliant on the traditions as opposed to what's possible?
Yeah, I think building a lot of these gameplay elements on top of what you see in DeFi, even a lot of these things like social fi elements or game launch pads or even yield farming, all of these are like game mechanics at the end of the day, right? So we try to think of creative ways to think of them as game mechanics to include in our game. How do you use tokens, NFTs, restrictions on trading, liquidity pools, things like that as mechanics for your game? I think there's actually a lot of things to play with. And then you might dress it up to make it look like a typical video game, but now you have all of these elements that make it uniquely Web3. So I'm not that interested in like personally making a Web 2.5 game where I'm creating a very traditional RPG, but the items are NFTs. I think some of them will be really successful. That's just not what I am interested in, kind of from an intellectual perspective.
Do you think all games should have NFTs, or is this more of a thing that a specific?
Absolutely not.
Yes, okay. Because some people will ask, like, how do we put NFTs in Dark Souls or whatever? And I'm like, it's a bad question. Don't put them in there. It would
Yeah,
make it
yeah.
worse, right? So
Yeah,
that's
it's like, how do we make Expedition 33 in Web3? The answer is you fucking don't.
yeah, because it would be it's just not the right fit. Yeah, it's
That's right.
if NFTs are going to go into first player campaign type of games, that's beyond the event horizon right now. I think, right? It's just like it's
Yeah, yeah,
there. We'll get there when we get there, maybe. But okay, I was just curious because yeah, that's good to hear you say that because. And that's interesting. Maybe that's part of. I'm kind of analyzing now or speculating. That might be part of why you're so comfortable with this casual degen category is that you're not trying to do everything with one kind of game. You know, Expedition 33, Deliverance, Kingdom Come Deliverance, these like super epic games, like those are
yeah,
one thing, and that's not the same thing as a play to earn Web3 game. And trying to make those the same thing, that is kind of like the
yeah.
skeuomorphism or the Web 2.5. It is interesting with something like Parallel as we get towards the end of our time here. We'll give a few fun things here to wrap up. It brings me to Parallel and the card games. The card games do feel like Web 2.5 does work more because there's such a one-to-one mapping of like physically trading cards and then digitally
Yeah.
what if you could trade them instead of only scrapping and stuff. And we've seen different models. Gods Unchained and other ones have done the thing where every card is an NFT. Gods had a core set that was virtual. The rest of them are NFTs. Parallel does it where every card has a virtual or an NFT version. And what's
That's right.
interesting, I used to think the Gods Unchained model was better. I was like, everything should be tradable. This is BS that Parallel is giving me things I can pay for, but I can't trade them. But I have sort of changed that view where it's like, okay,
That's right.
actually, separate tracks is really good. So degens have their track and people who don't
That's
want to
right.
touch that.
Yeah.
So my real question, though, what is your favorite Parallel deck to play?
Oh, deck.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a brand guy,
Okay.
so I like sending things to the singularity. Like, I haven't played the last couple of seasons, so I don't know what's in meta right now. But yeah, I'm like Shroud and Proud.
Proud and Proud is good. Have you played since they added the Take It or Leave It card, the coin?
No, I haven't. I haven't.
If you play
Tell me about it.
again, so there's a card called Take It or Leave It. It's 0 mana. It can't be banked, but when you play it, you get 1 extra energy. So it's a risk of like having less options to bank,
Oh,
but it lets you ramp. And with Brand, it's incredible because if you can play Brand before turn 5, it's just even
yeah,
crazier. And you could have used Stabilized Shard or other ramping cards that give plus energy,
yeah.
but the coin, people will
Shard is annoying. It's so slow at the start, right?
that's the tough part. I have a hard like people play it and like sweat the best players know exactly when the deck needs it or not. I'm always just like
Yeah,
not playing anything on turn 2 except my ramp feels so slow. But with the coin,
yeah, yeah.
you can get Brand out on turn 4 or turn 3 even and you have to experience this at some point when you're not too busy is just playing Brand until you get to double coin him on 3. You are the king.
Ah,
No one can touch you. It's
and I
so
love
good.
that because it's a risk element, right? Like, I do really like that.
Yeah,
I
you're
think that element of risk mechanics is something that is kind of very native to Web3.
people
That's why we
talk
call it casual degen.
yeah, people talk about risk to earn, and it's sort of a thing that I don't think has fully found its footing yet. We haven't really seen the clear example, but there's always that idea of like, what if you could just wager on your Hearthstone games or things of that nature. I'm kind of curious
Yep.
when that'll actually work. Um, but yeah, Rayon, that's good to hear. Yeah, next time you want to play Parallel, ping me, ping us. We'll set you up anytime. A coach, anything you
Oh,
need, we'll get you back in the meta
of
real quick.
course.
Although you guys have some of the best players in the world in YGG, so you don't really need our help now that I think about it. You got Sequinox and a lot of the top dogs. Too many to name. Okay, well, as we're getting into the last few minutes, was there any final things you wanted to say? Anything you want to put out there? I mean, you have such a loud voice across all platforms. You don't really need me to amplify anything, but nonetheless, any final thoughts you want as we kind of come to the end of this interview?
Well, please do play our game LOLland, LOL.land. Yeah, it's a casual degen game. I hope you guys will like it.
And it's free to play if you want to check it out. There is a premium mode.
Absolutely.
be careful with that premium mode unless you're whaling. That's all I got. But yeah, thank you so much for doing this. It was really amazing, Gabby. We'll hang on the call for 1 minute after I wrap the recording. But thank you so much. This was awesome, guys. If you're listening, y'all leave a comment. Let me know your favorite part of the conversation. And go. You already know Yield Guild Games, but if you're somehow not following them, we'll have links to Twitter and their website and stuff in the description. Thanks for watching.